you'll be able to hear yourself a little bit there. And then
Okay, I call the meeting to order. And first item is the approval of the agenda for the meeting. So can I have a mover? Thank you. And a seconder, Ron. All those in favour? Carried. Any declarations of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Noting none, we'll move on. Adoption of the minutes. Approval of the meetings from February the 10th. Mover, please. Thank you. Deputy Mayor again. And a seconder. Thank you. All those in favour? That's carried. I believe there are no delegations. Is that correct, Tom? Okay. Do we have items of correspondence?
Yes, the one I attached was forwarded from the Director of Planning, Paul. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, Paul, or... Attached in that package.
In this one here?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
So is this the...
proposed regulation under the Ontario Heritage Act.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I assume this is something the government is going forward with at the moment, is it?
I believe it says that it's in process right now. It's in progress, I guess is the technical term.
So would committees be looking to make comment on this, or
Through the chair to committee, I believe that's the request of the provincial government, that they've put this on their environmental registry so that committees and public in general can comment on the proposed revised regulations. There are some inferences on how municipalities can make decisions in terms of designating properties or listing properties, as the case may be. And so there's some changes in more process and procedure than on how these things get done. So the committee's review and any comments would be probably appreciated.
okay, so I guess as a committee we should investigate that and take a look at it, and we can review it at a future meeting. Is that okay with everybody? Yep. Okay.
I think there's a time limit. Yeah.
Sorry, Nancy?
We have until November the 5th.
Okay. So that will be probably before our next meeting, won't it? So I guess we should take a look and then communicate back to Tom if there are comments. Sound reasonable? Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I was going to recommend that the committee just simply delegate a person to take the lead on that, and committee members correspond through email, etc., and come to some kind of agreement as to comments and forward them on to Tom for posting on the environmental registry, if that's suitable to the chair.
Yeah, that would be fine. So if everybody would like to review it in the next few weeks and send your comments back to me, and then I'll put something together and forward it to Tom. And okay. Review of the revised committee terms of reference as proposed by the chair. I've circulated, well, that's been circulated, and I guess we can discuss any comments that you have, whether it's for or against or whatever. And my purpose in doing that, of putting this on the agenda, was that the existing terms of reference goes back several years now, and it makes quite a great deal about the Hilton Hall Heritage Centre, and that it, according to this document, it's a major part of the committee. I think over the years, having a Heritage Hall Hilton Hall Heritage Centre was a useful tool for managing that property, and I think now most people in the certainly on council and municipal staff now are very aware of the heritage status of that building. When this was first proposed, to put it mildly, there was not a consensus on heritage conservation throughout the community, and certainly the Hilton Hall, it was like pulling teeth to get a bit of money spent on it to replace the roof even. I was a municipal councillor at the time, and it was a hard slog. But that's completely changed now, and I think my personal judgment would be, although I'm not familiar with everybody involved at this point, but it seems that the municipality in general, council and the municipal staff, very conscious of this status and very conscious of the value of heritage conservation. So I don't think, and seeing as a lot of the things that are listed here in terms of the Hilton Hall committee, almost as a separate thing, is no longer viable. So the major change, that is the major change to this document, as well as what I've proposed here in terms of change. There is obviously a need to consolidate the document, probably by the clerk's office, to have it make sense and align with the other committee documents that have emerged over the years. So having said all of that, if members of the committee have any comments, we can certainly discuss them. You may not like everything I've got here. So, any comments? Positive or negative? Nancy, did you want to say something? Yes.
So any changes would have to, of course, go before council as far as the terms of reference for the committee. So when it goes before council, we should make sure we really clearly highlight this is what was taken out so that they can make that decision,
Right.
right?
Okay.
Just make it very clear as far as what we took out and why. If we could either minute it or just make sure it's part of the report,
Yeah.
so that's really clear.
Well, yeah. It was issued, and well, I sent you
Yes,
the marked
yes,
up
I just want to make
copy.
sure that what you sent
So that
makes
marked up
part
copy.
of our minutes, so that, because in the council meeting, I'll have to explain, I want to be able to point, this
Right.
is what we took out, and this is why. What you're saying makes lots of sense. I mean,
Okay.
there was a time where we needed to have it in there, but I just want to have the tools in front of council so
Right.
that I can explain why we
Right.
made the change in case there's
Right.
questions. Okay?
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. You Tom?
Those will be attached to the minutes.
Okay. Very good. Okay.
One point of potentially incentivizing owners to be designated on this. Were we going to offer a acknowledgement from the municipality as an incentive, and the plaques that would be on the properties, rather than incentivized, I'm thinking monetary? When the properties are designated, we have a plaque and there's a presentation. They get acknowledged in the press. I think that's enough incentive for the property owners. And if eventually we have a public master list of designated properties, they get acknowledged at that time. But any other incentivizing might be, I don't know, costly.
True. It might be.
Oh,
How is that? Does that relate to this document? And are you proposing to change?
maybe a second statement clarifying how it's incentivized, like I said, the properties designated will have a plaque or a building plaque, signage or that. But we have some properties listed that don't want plaques, and they would like, but would still like to be acknowledged on a master list of designated properties or heritage properties.
Right, but
Oh, I'm just, as last point on your the general comments and that, I thought incentivized usually refers to money, so I thought I'd ask about that point.
could you point out to me which part you're talking about?
Page 9, the bottom bullet point.
I do believe they're non-monetary incentives.
yeah.
I think the incentives are basically the plaque or just a statement that it's
Yeah.
been, but there's never been a monetary incentive in the past, correct? No.
Unless there's grants, and we don't have any in the municipality, and as far as I know, there are none with the Ontario Heritage Trust at this time.
So this isn't new wording, though. This is the way it's always been, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that clear it up? Is that kind
Yeah.
of what you're, yeah,
Okay.
okay. Makes sense.
So,
I thought it might have been too simplified when we use incentivized, but if this is how the statement always was, I have no more comment on that.
okay,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, so I guess the motion is to send this forward to council, correct? All those in favour? Carried. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
The motion, as I have it reading, is that the Heritage Advisory Committee recommend council adopt the revised terms of reference as proposed.
Right. Okay. So I'll move it. Nancy. Seconder. Deputy Mayor. All those in favour? Carried. Okay. I must apologise, I kind of lost myself here.
Next item looks like the mature neighborhood study.
Okay, I should explain that the reason I've brought this forward is I guess a feeling that there's a lot of changes to properties that happen, and sometimes they're nice and sometimes they're not so nice. There was some discussion, I think, during the mature neighbourhood study that I must apologise, I kind of lost myself here. I think most of you are aware that I have a couple of medical problems, and at the moment it doesn't allow me to concentrate as much as I once did, which is one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to somebody else taking over the chair. So okay, having said that, it's okay. I've found my notes now, so I'm in better shape. There was some discussion of that what could come out of the mature neighbourhoods study would be something that we could that the municipality could invoke to give incentives. It's back to, I guess, to the previous discussion in a part, so that in the mature areas where we see not only a need to designate or protect the heritage value of individual properties, which is what the committee has done throughout its existence, but to make go towards more general incentives by the municipality in terms of offering encouragements of monetary or otherwise for owners to, when they're going to renovate a property, to do so in a way that, even though the building is not designated, maybe not even listed, that there will be an incentive to do things in a way that protected the nature of the building as it sits in the neighbourhood, as it affects surrounding properties. In other words, if you had a building that was designated on a particular street, and the next door neighbours decided to demolish an older property that whilst it may not have actually any specific heritage value, it sits nicely because of the fact that it's grown up, if you like, with the neighbourhood, it sits nicely in that neighbourhood. And I'll give you one example that I recall from in the area north of Main Street, where there was a small brick house that was claimed it was in a poor state of repair. The brickwork was crumbling and so on and so forth. And obviously it wasn't protected in any way specifically, so the owner suggested that the brickwork was crumbling and presented a danger, and it was better to knock the building down, and at the same time 2 new houses were erected. Wouldn't it have been much nicer if instead of those 2 houses that came along, they're not nice, nasty houses, but they chose to use these, well, they're not really bricks, but they're concrete blocks that made to look like bricks, but they look like concrete. You can get the same material, maybe a little more expensive, I don't know, that's concrete, but it looks like, it's a red colour, so it looks like bricks. Would have set in that area much more neatly. So I'm being long-winded here, and I apologise, but this is where I think the mature neighbourhood study had really made some comments along these lines, that we don't always need designation to protect a property, but we can protect it by giving incentives for changes in a way that recognises the neighbourhood. And I just driven past 156 Main Street today. I think it's 156, and I'm gone from seeing work start on that building and thinking, oh no God, what are we going to do with this? And I could see plastic siding going on it, and I'd noticed that the little porch at the front had been ripped off. But I looked at it just coming to this meeting today, and it looks beautiful. The porch is back on, and it looks pretty much, and it probably is plastic siding on it, but it's been done in a very nice way. So anyway, I'm not sure what the status of the mature neighbourhood study is, but if anybody can clarify, maybe on where the municipality is going with this.
Through the chair, I believe the official plan, when it was updated in December, and now just recently finally passed by and finally approved by the county level, I think there may have been some of those conclusions and recommendations incorporated into the now official plan. In terms of actual other incentives, I think that would take something outside of official plans and zoning bylaws. Normally, when dictating exterior materials, it's difficult under zoning and under site plan. There's some provisions in the legislation saying that we can't dictate means of construction. Although materiality does fall within, I think, the scope of zoning. We can't prohibit certain materials, but we can regulate. For example, a maximum percentage of the exterior material shall be vinyl siding, things like that. That has been used. It's been, I'm not sure what the current legal status of that approach is, whether it's still upheld or not. But those are some of the approaches we can have. Those aren't incentives; those are regulatory methods. But I'd have to. I'm not totally familiar with this study. I've reviewed it cursory fashion, but to answer directly your question, I'd like to give you a more confident answer by going back to it.
Right, thank you very much. And are there any other comments or suggestions?
Out of our initial conversations about the mature neighborhoods, it was brought up from a previous member that historic districts were becoming a working tool for municipalities and for heritage committees and for architectural conservancy committees throughout Ontario, and perhaps a heritage district designation might be something that this committee, along with staff and the planner and other committees, the new Economic Development Committee might be able to develop a outline and a checklist that if somebody's coming to town to modify a historic house, maybe if they had a point of reference like the Ontario Architecture website, which gives delineated symbols of and examples of some of the houses that are in Ontario that they could fall back on, and the municipality can fall back on these plans, and this is a style, even if it's a modified style, that would fit in with the historic district. So basically, I'm rambling on, where perhaps we need to have a defined historic district with a couple of priorities for homeowners to know where they can reference material, and potentially I have heard a couple historic districts have been able to access some grants to help people or help individuals and community groups to maintain historic buildings. Maybe the municipality in the future needs to have a historic district, maybe not committee, but maybe an oversight, or maybe a project.
Through the chair, if I may comment just as a staff person, my experience with heritage conservation districts is directly from Prince Edward County. There's a heritage conservation district for the main street of Picton and adjacent areas. And there's a very good heritage architect who's now set up office down there under the name Branch Architecture, who was the author of the policy work for that conservation district. So all buildings, as the committee is probably familiar with, all buildings in the conservation district are therefore regulated by it. So when it comes to heritage compatibility, any development, if it's not a designated property and it's subject to some development proposal, then it goes through the committee for an approval for compatibility to the heritage conservation district. It's a lot of work. You need to have all your attributes listings done. You'll have a number of areas of architecture, usually within that conservation district, so your attributes listings for each type, so that and then usually develop something a little like a sub neighborhood based on those inventories and so character areas, as it would be referred to, and then upon a proposal for a renovation, the heritage permit would be submitted to the municipality and reviewed for consistency and conformity with the Heritage Conservation District policies and standards. So it is a lot of work. I think the committee would need to be very confident that there is one of significant scale and scope of a conservation district, and it is a useful tool, as being alluded to, but there is a significant administrative framework that goes with it.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Are there
Yes,
any other
thank you.
comments? Is there any at this point, I just put it out there for discussion, and what's the feeling in the committee? Do you want to just say we discussed it and we will work with the director in the future as opportunities arise to basically make this happen? Or do you want to do something more specific and recommend to council that the Heritage District be adopted for that area? I mean, typically, in my experience in Port Hope, and just, you know, going to heritage conferences and so on over the years, if when municipalities take an initiative like that, unless they roll out some education first and show the population and particularly property owners in the area what the benefit is to them. If you don't do that, as soon as you start talking about it, you get the shutters go up and there's a lot of pushback. So, I mean, yes.
I was just going to say, it's a good idea and something for us to look at, but I think we need to make sure we go through the process in the right way, just for that reason that I think Brighton's heritage is kind of spread all over. I don't know if we have a district, and that's part of, you know, we could, you know, there are certain areas, but there's a lot of newer homes or, you know, 20, 30-year-old homes kind of in between, but certainly something, now that we have a planner in place, that we can start looking at and start working with and figuring out how to do it well. I think it would be a good idea to maybe continue to look at it, and Paul can give us back, you know, some ideas on how to do it in Brighton, because it would be different than anywhere else. So that's what I would think. Something for us definitely to discuss, but make sure we tick all those boxes, like you're saying, and if we're going to go ahead with it, that we're ready to educate people as well, and council, about how it would work.
Thank you, Laura. Well, I think most of us probably saw the the ball starting to roll, I guess, with the talk of the conservation district. But again, you need to move forward, I think, in baby steps. That would be my... So does anybody want to put anything on the table in terms of how we minute this discussion? Or I think Laura probably has already. The committee, I don't know, maybe the committee recommends to council that they can...
Perhaps the committee would discuss this at a future date to potentially present to council, because I'm thinking in the next 5 years we've got to get our ducks in a row and protect and get our heritage properties listed and designated first, and then we've got to, and then there's parts B, C, and D before we even get on to Heritage District, I believe. But it was mentioned a couple times out of the mature neighborhood that historic district was an option. So it's a future option, I think, for this committee with the size of the committee.
I don't think at this point we need to make any recommendation to council. All we can, I think we can just suggest that we continue the discussion on this with the planner giving us information as well. So I think we just need to continue to have this discussion and figure out where we're going to go with it. We're not ready to recommend anything. I mean, that everything is minuted so council can read it either way, right? So, but, yeah.
Okay.
Is there a possibility of perhaps asking Picton for a copy of their plan? It'll be a good building block for us, and from that we could just amend it to what our community is all about.
I can make a copy available for committee members to review and get a good feel for how these things might work.
That sounds like an excellent first step. Thank you. Okay, so
Do you want that as a motion? I've got a rough one written up here if you want to use it or not.
okay.
That the committee explore the potential for heritage districts at future meetings by reviewing the, is it town of Picton or city?
It's the former town of Picton. I think it's simply referred to as the Picton Heritage Conservation District.
By reviewing the Picton Heritage Conservation District.
Okay, read the first part again.
That the committee explore the potential for heritage districts at future meetings by reviewing the Picton Heritage Conservation District.
Okay. Somebody want to move that? Laura? Oh, right, okay. That's Laura's second. All those in favour? That's carried.
Through the chair, the county is also busy looking at doing something similar in Wellington. And it's got some unique features to it. They're going to have, I think, 2 separate areas simply because the village evolved very differently, starting off as a port community, then a rail community, and different nodes of development happened based on the availability of those 2 different modes of transport. So it's kind of interesting from those 2 regards. With COVID, I'm not sure if it got completed. It was supposed to be completed end of March, but I can check on the status of that. So there might be a little extra something in your stocking when I send it around.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, so I think we've dealt with 7.2, so 7.3, budget discussion.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, on the amended agenda, we added memory junction, so it'd be on my packet that I would have handed out there
Okay,
as
sorry about that.
and I just
Oh,
added it
yeah,
as an
that's
item
right, that's
for
right.
discussion.
Yeah. Okay, I'll work on that one. So it's 6E, memory junction. So who brought that up? You did, right.
Robert and I were both in attendance at the Memory Junction auction that they recently had.
Oh,
And there was some Brighton memorabilia that was auctioned off. And sadly, actually, but anything, I found a few items that the family did tuck away that I felt should have been recorded at the very minimally. There were 2 books that were assessment rolls from 1917 and 1903, I think was the other one. There are original pictures. None of this has been recorded to my knowledge. I talked to them, to Fletch from the Digital Archives, and he felt that he saw what he wanted to see and that those were photocopies, which the Digital Archives is not interested in. But they may be the only copies. That was the contention I had with it, is that the family felt very frustrated when I spoke to them about that there didn't appear to be any interest whatsoever. They have heard nothing from the municipality, and that concerns me. There'll be 2 more auctions, and these items were stowed away, but these are clearly items that should be in the archives. There's no question in my mind. And I don't know how we go about that. I know that we have a budget. I don't know if that's something that the Bangays would consider, is to, if we purchase them, And on behalf of the municipality, if that's something that, we can do, don't know. But it would be a shame to lose them. I saw bits and pieces of the Presbyterian Church go. I know where it is. I know where some of the artifacts are, but this is how it's all going to go down. So we've got a very limited time frame to just, make some decisions about some of these artifacts and whether that's something we want to do. And that also I really, the building itself, I don't know what the future is for that. I can tell you there is some frustration on the part of the family that there's been no discussion, or a discussion has stopped with the municipality. So they're concerned about the status of the dream of Ralph and Eugenia Bangay to keep this building for the residents. It's a designated building.
Okay. I think Laura would like to say something on this.
Well, I think there have been some discussions. I had no idea
Yes.
this auction was even happening, so
No.
certainly nothing has been sent. I don't know, when you say that they're frustrated with the municipality, the people who make the decisions didn't even know that there was going to be an auction. So, there's this sort of thing going on, and when council makes a decision, we decide to spend taxpayers' dollars. So, do I want to buy the place and have a future for it? Absolutely. Will we be able to make it happen? I don't know. But I think perhaps we can put together some sort of motion asking maybe council to designate a certain amount of money to purchase items. I don't know if that would be. I have no idea what amount. I have no idea how that works. And also asking council about the status of looking into purchasing the site, because there has been some things that have gone on, but I think that's what this committee maybe can do at this point. Ask the questions. I think that's all we can do, and have that go to council and ask that be pulled out as a separate question that we want to answer to at a meeting. Tom, sometimes we do that. If there's something important, we ask for it to be not just accept the minutes, but this is the question we want. So I think with this one, that's what we need to do. Does that make sense? When's the next auction, Nanci?
I heard it was next year. Robert, did you have any idea?
I thought so too.
I was told March 2021,
Okay.
and possibly another one in June 2021.
Okay, so we have some time, but that would be my suggestion.
Okay, I don't have any objection to that happening. I'm not really seeing a fit with the traditional view of Heritage Advisory Committee, which is all about built heritage. Yeah. So, okay. And could I ask you one question, Laura? Was there in fact any discussion at council about possibly acquiring, I thought there was, acquiring the land and the buildings?
Yes, there definitely was. COVID, of course, has messed with a lot of these things, right? This was something that started and was discussed more in closed, so I can't go into the details of it, but you know what I mean? So certainly those discussions have started. So I think as a heritage committee, we can ask where those discussions are at and ask for some feedback, and maybe we can get the ball rolling again on that. I don't know if you've ever had, anything about it, Tom, that you're able to discuss or been looking at it a little bit as a municipality.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Through Chair, I'm afraid I don't have a lot of background on this one. I have heard conversation about it during council sessions and whatnot, but some of it hasn't stuck because I wasn't familiar with the details. but I look forward to becoming more familiar.
And I'd just like to note one thing, that it's not, in fact, there's a precedent in Brighton in terms of working with developers when land is up for sale. And it was one of the Toby developments, the earlier ones, and there was a whole piece of the development area that was set aside as sort of a park area, it's a grassed area, and it has a heritage plaque on it, because I forget the details now, to be honest, but the plaque is there because this was a significant site back in the day. And the negotiation between, when the whole tract of land was up for discussion, or up for development, the developer made an agreement with the municipality that the plans were approved subject to this park being set aside, which would be, I think, a very appropriate thing to do with Memory Junction, because if you took, I can't see anybody wanting to live right next to the tracks as the railway station is, so separating that off as a little local park, and also you've got the railroad crossing there, so it's kind of a noisy area anyway, so you know, if the municipality did not wish to, or had no funds to acquire that whole property, there would certainly be a good case, I think, for making a deal with the developer that would preserve a little park there with the railway station. So, anyway, so...
My hope is that we could, this is my hope, it doesn't mean it's going to happen, we could acquire the whole thing and eventually get the train to stop in Brighton again and use that building. Is that a pipe dream? I don't know, but that's my hope at this point, because I think it would be a loss to Brighton to lose that building. And I think as a heritage committee, we can certainly inquire as to, you know, where things are at, and give council that little extra, hey, well, we want to see this happen too, or something happen.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that would be my thought process.
Do you have some written words there?
I've got some words here. You guys can tell me if
Thanks,
you
Tom.
think this is accurate or not to what you're discussing. So that the committee request an update from council regarding the possibility of purchasing the Memory Junction property given its heritage designation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe,
I think it might be worthwhile to have some discussions with the family regarding that. I think they're pretty open to it, you know, and I don't think it would...
So maybe we can add and suggest that Mr. Sully have discussions with the family.
I think the family would very much appreciate it. Yes.
Would that be staff, you think, or?
the CAO. The CAO. Yeah. Okay. Someone with a bit of status, I think they'd like to.
Well, I don't...
Staff is
yeah.
fine.
Yeah, I don't think we need to be giving direct instructions to council. It's a question of saying we see this as heritage value, and we recommend council does something about it, which is pretty much what Tom has there, I think.
I have an alternative also for documents that are at, perhaps we can borrow them, scan them, and they can be returned to the auction list at some time in the future. There's enough digital scanners in the community, digital cameras. If it's not of interest to the Brighton Digital Archive, maybe we need to have some documents stored through the planning department, or the Heritage Advisory Committee would like to see original documents that may be leaving Brighton in the future.
Well, yeah. My quick reaction to that is, let's have a second motion.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
The second motion.
The one motion is definitely, on the property, is definitely Heritage Advisory Committee business.
Right.
Preservation of particular documents, I think, is a bit of a stretch.
Well, we've had previous documents that when the hops barn was moved to the property, to the Memory Junction property from the McMaster farm, that was documented in photographs, and we have that documentation stored in the library. So perhaps the library, in their history section, Brighton history section, would like a copy of documents we've scanned. So it'd be open to everybody, but maybe we'll have to do a bit of work.
Laura?
Well, I think it would be great to have copies of the documents because they're just great history, right? Whether or not it's this committee, I don't know. The Digital Archives Committee is a committee of council, so that's the job to do this sort of thing as well. It'd be great to have them in the library, but I just don't know where we can go with this in this committee. I would love to see us be able to do something. Maybe we can just make a suggestion or a request that the Digital Archives Committee, maybe. I mean, it's just a request. We're not directing anything, but we certainly maybe can make the request because it's come to our attention. And if we word it in that way, maybe that's the right way to go about it. Yeah, I would love to see us have copies of it somewhere.
Well, we do have space at the archives in Northumberland. The municipality does. And I think these documents are of significance historically. These are assessment rolls, and now, they were selling quite well, some of these ledgers and things. They were, the assessment rolls, though, were pulled. And they were very large books. I took a picture of the front of one, and inside it listed all of the residents of Brighton, how many were in their family, and I think that's pretty significant. And
Raises an interesting question of how the heck they got away from the municipality in the first place.
well, Ralph used to find treasures in people's homes, and or in public works yard in the case of a couple of artifacts that he mentioned, and nobody wanted it. It was going to the dump. Yes, exactly.
Okay, I think we're talking about two different motions. We've dealt
Yeah.
with the one.
Yeah.
Tom, do you have some words for us for the second one?
Okay, yeah, so the second one,
Yeah, I'm still kind of wrestling with the words on that one. So because I think we can, or the committee can recommend that council direct staff or a committee of council. So I don't know how to say that, but the committee recommend that council, maybe it's just the committee recommend that council investigate acquiring copies of the historic artifacts and content within the Memory Junction building. Okay. And then basically that council can decide how to go about
Yes,
that.
okay. I like that. Could you just read it one more time?
so this is a separate motion.
Separate motion.
So that this motion would read that the committee recommend council investigate acquiring copies of the Brighton historic artifacts and content within the Memory Junction building. Or from within them.
From the... Well, it's... Yeah, it's the estate, right? It would be the estate. wouldn't it?
Well, except Eugenia still.
Oh, yeah, right, so, yeah.
So
And perhaps you should say buildings, plural. Okay.
So is that
Is that a motion? Okay.
Okay. You can speak to it if they're confused, can't you? Okay. And that is moved by Nanci, I think. Yes?
yes,
And seconded by... Okay. All those in favour? That's carried. Okay.
no, we did not.
So now we come to budget discussion.
Oh, before
Back to the first motion.
Beg pardon?
the motion.
To the first motion. The first motion about the property engagement.
Did we do it? Oh. Okay. So,
first piece moved out?
okay. Okay. So you're going to just pose those. So the property comes first and the document second. So there's okay. You got a second? Right. Okay. All those in favour? That's carried. I don't know why we don't want to talk about budget, but just the way it is, I guess. Okay, Heritage Budget 2020. Okay, so maintain zero. So I'm seeing this that we would accept that as direction. And normally we would bring out the 2021 budget next month anyway.
I got a request from the Director of Finance to have all committees' budgets in by October 16th. So that was my reason for just adding it in there, just so that you guys can make the...
Okay.
We're starting the budget process in the end of October already. That's why we're trying to get it done earlier. So that's
Okay.
why we're looking at them earlier.
Okay.
And council, because of the economic situation everyone is in, we are trying to keep our budget increases to zero as much as possible, and that's why that was the request in here as well. So we can move our money around, but we prefer to see no increase. So there might be other areas that we want to move it to, but the bottom line, we'd like to see the same if possible.
Okay, I'd like to suggest then a motion here that the committee undertakes to maintain a zero increase in the 2021 budget, and that the detailed budget we discuss at the next meeting. Seconder? Nanci? All those in favour? That's carried. Because, I mean, presumably we can have a lower budget if we wish. Well, the thing is, we have to be reasonable and put things in that we actually want to spend some money on. I mean, really, we spent nothing in our budget this year, or very, very little of it, but it wasn't by choice. So. Okay, so we're on to previous agenda item tracking. Robert, the tour maps. Actually, if I could, I would just like to say a few words before Robert updates us on the new version. Somehow or the other, well, I know, I ended up with a huge box, about that big, full of Heritage Advisory maps and what have you, and it's mostly maps. So we have a ton of those the previous version of the map, and I'm wondering if we can really justify spending more money on more maps when these are already printed. And I'm maybe you'll disagree, but it doesn't seem to me that there's going to be a whole bunch of change to it. That's okay. I'm not. I'm just saying that's the situation.
They are useful up until new ones come along, but
Yeah, true.
I'm finding that street names have changed. Veterans Way, for one. I'm having a lot of interest when we go a Main Street one, that we'd like some acknowledgement, or some people would like some acknowledgement about Memorial Park as the cenotaph, and
Yeah.
why we have a memorial park and that. If we distributed what we had left over the next 3 months or 4 months until we get new maps in the new year, because I'm thinking it's going to be the new year, we will create enough interest in the community, in the new members of the community, and tourists, for people to look for the new maps, the changes, the additions, the new locations to explore as for the new year. But it's becoming a larger piece of work than I originally thought. I thought I could just change a few paragraphs, add a few additional houses and that, and had communications with a number of members in the community, and they'd like to see this. I recently talked to the owner of the White House, and she would like to participate in a listing on the larger map of the Brighton municipality, including the White House and Gosport and Presqu'île, the government docks in Codrington and Hilton and that, where she might not want to participate along the main street because she doesn't want people just walking along the main street and walking up to her front door. So it's not going to be a novel, it's not going to be a big thing, but we need to have a little better details and major modifications to what they are now. I think they're still useful, and I gave a couple to history students earlier in the spring, and they went around and they were fascinated by what we had, but they were also looking for more too.
Okay, that's fair enough.
So I would like to have them ready for the history weekend properly and examined by all the members of the committee, and have their suggestions back probably sometime in December, and then we can get it up and printed, or at least approved of for that point.
Okay.
But between now and then, the maps are useful and people are appreciating them.
Right.
So
okay.
maybe we need to be distributing them here, and at the we've got a tourism location at the Birdhouse by Presqu'île, and perhaps the new hotel down in Gosport on Bay Street would like some too, when they open at the end of the month.
Okay.
Yes, if you want to save money, they're useful.
Oh,
But- We have them, we might as well use them, let's get them out there. But I'm still working on it too.
yeah. With
Update.
COVID, I'm not sure about distribution of materials like that, and I'm not sure whether we'd be seeing an actual exhibition, you know, like a heritage fair this
In February.
in
Oh,
February.
well,
Who
maybe
knows?
it'll
But
get
I
delayed
could be dead
to.
wrong. Yeah. The other thing I would like to get looked at is whether the committee can have a presence on the municipal website, where you'd be able to download a copy of that map on your phone, which I think most people would
Yes.
probably go for rather than
Yeah.
having a piece of paper. And we
Uh,
can keep it 100% up to date then.
mhm.
So I mean, your work is never going to be wasted because
Right.
you've got it done, and you know, well, again, you know, if we can get it up on the website, and my mind is to pass a resolution to recommend to council that the committee have a presence on the website where we can post this kind of information. You know, just as an aside, and I don't want to steer right off the
Right. Yes.
pitch here, but that the list we have of heritage properties that are registered on our registered list, that really should be up on the website too.
Hmm. Yes.
It was at one point actually, but for some reason it got taken off. I guess it was when there was the major change to the website, and it wasn't built back quite the same way. But my understanding is that the current format has all kinds of flexibility for doing just this kind of thing. And we probably reach a lot more people via the website than we will any other way, actually.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. I've had a couple people ask me how to research their properties in
Yeah,
along Chapel Street and along
yeah,
Mead Street and that. And I had to say earlier this year that you may need to contact the clerk, and when the planning department is available to answer your inquiry, they'll be able to get back to you.
Yeah.
And now we have a planner, that would makes it a lot easier. And I appreciate it.
yeah.
All right, thanks.
Laura?
I think definitely we need to still continue to update because, you know, brochures are nice sometimes. There are a time where you just want to take that piece of paper and do a walk around town. I think it's a good idea for us to have an updated one. When we print, we'll have to see what we have in our budget as well. I'm not sure if we have any plaques planned for next year. Maybe next year is the time to print some because we don't have plaques on the go. But definitely the website. We need to have a presence on the website, have a listing of all the houses that are listed or designated, you know, the process and where they all are. I think that would be a very good idea and something that we need to ask
Yeah,
for.
I agree. Just one sort of note on that, though, is that we have to be careful how much detail we put on the website of the individual properties, because to be candid, I've had requests to give out to people the list that we have established, and I'm very, very reluctant to do that. I was approached by the Archive Committee, a member of the Archive, to have that list, and the list as it stands is it has links so that you can get quite a bit of detail on the property, which I don't think we've ever talked to any of the people that had their houses listed or designated about having them up on the website. So I mean, I think we'd be very safe putting the address there, and that's, but put in any other details that might be fraught.
We may not have to go back to all of them and ask if we can post a picture
Yeah.
and an address. Keep it as simple as that. That's all
Yeah,
we need, right?
that's the way to.
And some detail about the history,
Yeah,
right? That's really all we need. But yeah, we may have to go back to all of them to ask for that permission at this point. So it might be a process, but a process we should start on, I think.
There is some cross-reference to a number of the properties already on the Brighton Digital Archive,
yes, I know.
Smith and that, so.
I'm assuming they've got approval to have that information. I think they have. Anyway, so where does that leave us? What shall we have as a motion, if any?
Can I just say I'm continuing to work on that, and we'll have updates
Okay.
soonest?
So regarding 8.1, you're reporting, you've given us an update, and you'll be reporting again at the next meeting.
Thank you.
I've got a motion here. I mean,
Yes.
really, just you guys discussing this, I could just go ahead and create a page and we can go back and forth, and when you update, you can let me know. Or you could do a motion that the committee recommend council to direct staff to establish a heritage committee page on the municipal website to provide access to the updated heritage tour maps. So you could do it as a motion, or you can just tell me to do it.
What's the feeling?
It's up to you guys.
As long as we minute something, it's good for council to know that we're establishing this, and maybe it gives a little bit of, people will read it and see it and know that it's happening.
Okay.
Sure.
So, is everybody okay with the wording? The
Yes.
motion? Yes?
Yeah.
Do you want to hear it again?
Both.
Both?
It's a motion from the committee to recommend council right now, but you could just, because technically you can't just tell me to do it,
No.
but, so I think if you word it this way, it'll be in the minutes, and then we can just go ahead and do it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's currently, the way I have it written is that the committee recommend council direct staff to establish a heritage committee, advisory committee page on the municipal website to provide access to the updated heritage tour maps.
And potentially the list of heritage properties? Sorry?
Once the site's established, we can keep giving him info. It's not limited to just the maps, so we could just say heritage information or heritage instead
Sure.
of maps.
Sure.
And that
Yeah.
way we can
And-
continue to provide you with anything.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah.
I like that word.
Yep.
Okay. So, really one more
Once
time?
we get our foot in the door with this recommendation, do we have to go back to council if we want to make changes? No?
No, we just,
I think that's wise then, just to make it to establish a heritage advisory committee page on the municipal website to provide access to updated heritage information. So now we can just, anything you guys want me to put on there, you tell me and I'll do it.
I'm not entirely comfortable with that.
No?
I don't want anybody that has a designated building to feel that they're being overexposed, if you like.
But us as a committee will decide what goes on there, and we can't do anything without permission anyways, right? We know we can't put anything up there without their permission. So how would information go on to that site without?
Well, It just means revisiting every one of those properties, the owners of every one of those properties. I mean,
At this point, all we're doing is asking to establish a page on the website.
okay,
The rest of it, we haven't decided. If we get to that point, because we're not going there yet, right?
no.
We need to decide how we're going to go about it at that time, right?
But I can't see any problem with listing the buildings, as long as we're not, and a photograph. But anything else, I think, is potentially fraud, that's all. But anyway, I guess the onus is on us to be careful about that. And presumably
Well, weren't we just talking about the brochure, one way of getting it
no,
available? That's how it started off.
yes,
wasn't it?
yes, that's right.
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
website.
Okay, so we're going to have the website, we're going to have the map on it, and we're
Matt,
going
yeah.
to have some other information down the road.
Oh, okay. Now
Is that right?
I'm confused.
Read it one more time.
So, okay, I'll read it and you guys discuss. That the committee recommend council direct staff to establish a Heritage Advisory Committee page on the municipal website to provide access to updated heritage information. Now I could add to include heritage tour maps, or we could just be specific, and if you just want to keep it to the heritage tour maps for now, and you guys can change it as you like.
I think heritage information, because we may want to put a reference to the Ontario Heritage Act URL on that page.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
So
let's
just
leave it.
information
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is everybody happy with that? Who's going to move it?
I will.
Okay. Second? Ron? All those in favour? It's carried. Okay, previous agenda items, tracking. Maps and brochures, yes, sorry, we've done that one. Progress on collecting information on 2 Main Street properties with a goal of persuading the owners to designate. You were going to look at that, Nancy.
Yeah, I was looking into the two that, so there has already been work established on this one, on Main Street.
This one, sorry.
It's already been done on that. But, okay, are we, who is going to approach the property owners for designation?
Well, potentially I would, or the chair at some point. So do you feel that we have enough information on those 2 properties to move ahead with designation?
Well, I think it's fine for now, but I certainly, I don't know if, unless you're going to go through for a designation, I don't know that I'd want to get too detailed about it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's listed now. We've got it listed on as a heritage building, and that's all signed up. But the next stage is designation, the legal, which would involve the planning department actually. So,
Are we talking about 136 Main?
Yeah, 130.
Yeah.
Yeah, 136 was one of
and
them.
185, isn't it, the other one? And 185? No?
136 and it was at 99?
It's the store there.
99
Hmm.
and 136.
Well, maybe. Well, times moving on. So I think we just maybe Paul comment on. We have 2 properties that we've put on the municipal list as of heritage value, and now we wish to move forward, and the 2 owners have given their tentative consent, move forward with designation. So we're kind of wondering what additional information we need to collect, and it's a legal process.
Yeah, sure. Normally you take an inventory of the attributes of the property as to why it warrants a designation or a listing. So usually it's of some outstanding either cultural or architectural significance. And I'm sure the committee has probably a good handle on that, but
Yes, we do.
it should be documented.
It's documented.
So we have a heritage attributes listing for the property. So then, and with owner's permission, then it begins to be advertised for designation purposes.
Mm.
And that public consultation process happens, and once that's concluded, then it comes forward to council for a bylaw to designate.
Right. Okay. Okay. So
Paul, just a question. So who would normally approach to designate? Is it a member of the committee that would approach, or is it a staff member that would approach to designate through direction from committee, or how does that work?
It can be either or, depending on what respective roles have been decided upon, but it can be a committee member. In larger municipalities, they have some dedicated staff, designated heritage planners, et cetera, who might initiate that process, but it's common for members of a heritage committee to also be champions of that process and to its conclusion towards a designation. I don't know if there's been past practice here in Brighton that some places really make sure that the owner of the property is on side before anything begins. It's not a question for this property, sounds like. So my inkling is maybe for a committee member to approach the landowner and let them know that a notice in the paper might be forthcoming for the purposes of a designation bylaw.
Okay. All right. I'll undertake to talk to both of the owners to see about moving forward with designation. See if a minute at the night.
I'll just make a note on that.
Okay. So that I don't think. Do I need a vote on that?
If you want, we could do like a motion, a resolution that the committee approve the chair to approach the 2 property owners.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So I'll I guess I can move that. Can I have a seconder, please? Okay. All those in favour? Oh, that's carried. Discussion of potential benefits. What's the time? I can't see.
It is 2:28.
2:28. I think we probably. Well, let's see if we can skip through the rest of it. Discussion of potential benefits of reaching out to other Northumberland Heritage Advisory Committees. Nanci to report. Did you do anything on that, Nanci? Or?
No, because of COVID, there's no sense in putting anything together at this point.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so we'll So can we minute that the committee agreed to defer pending the Coburg
Yep.
outbreak? And I think, Tom, you put in the Community Heritage Ontario training as a potential way to get training done.
Oh,
Did you do that?
I don't think I did it without someone telling me to, though.
Oh,
I don't know. If, did anyone email me about that, or maybe it just was kept in from the previous?
Maybe, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we've got the CHO news, and I think lists. Well, did you send me a separate thing with the list of training? Okay, I can't read. No, there's something in there. Okay. Anyway, okay. Anyway, I think with Coburg, we're going to probably defer any training at this point. So. Permission for the canneries plaque. Robert, did you follow through on that? You were talking to the owner, right?
I've been talking to the owner at, at the warehouse, and they're waiting to hear from the municipality. They're willing to sign off on it, and they have suggestions where the plaque could be installed, and are willing to accept suggestions from the municipal staff where they would like to.
That was for Stevens, wasn't it? It wasn't actually on Canada site?
Actually, you've got permission from Renegade, which is 38, and we have permission at Ray, and yes, that property, Steve, and the property is being sold from 2 partners down to 1 partner. So both partners on the warehousing property have agreed to it, and are just waiting to hear from it in writing from the municipality.
Okay. So who are we looking to request permission? Is that the planning department, or is it the...
I think it was the planning department, and I think that was what Patrick had suggested, that he had an outline one that was in the planning department's files for Heritage. There was an outlined letter, and then all we had to do is plug in the address and have it sent out.
So was this Public Works, or was that...
It
Was
was,
it the planning?
he showed it to me
I don't think it would have been in planning.
in the planning department's, on the files on the computer.
Look into it and see if I can find a template on that, or is it
Well,
basically a template
There
for
was a
that?
template, yeah.
Okay. I can look into that and just see what I can find, and maybe between me and Paul, we'll sort of figure out where that might be, and then would it be sent from, you think, the planning department?
Who's got it? Who's got the plan?
I thought the plaque was already here. I thought it already been paid.
We're
for.
talking permission.
Permission, but the plaque's available.
The plaque's
Oh, the
supposed to
plan.
be
We
here
have
at
the plan.
Sharp Street.
Okay.
Sure.
As long as I know where the plaque is.
I think planning would be.
Well, somebody said it was in Sharp Road.
Sure,
Somewhere.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was supposed to, it was delivered, and it's probably still in its shipping container at Sharp Road.
Could we ask Paul that you look into that, where it's stored, and okay. And if you could liaise, we could get the installation done, and it's going to get back to, it's going to get got only a few weeks to do it before freeze up. Suggestions for additional heritage site information plaques, and I've got one suggestion, and that is standard bank. That's on the corner of Main and Prince Edward. So, would somebody like to volunteer to come up with a design for that? No? Okay. Well, we got lots of time to plan it out because we can't get it made this year. Okay. Okay.
The arches,
Okay. So I'm moving that we move forward with designing a plaque for the standard bank, subject to well, no, not subject to anything. Yeah. Yes, Nancy.
I'm wondering if there's some way that we could design the plaque that it could be inset into the brick rather than on a, because then we're going to be dealing with snowplows and things they're trying to clear. They'd have to go around a platform on the sidewalk. I think it might be better.
Well, I sort of visualizing it being on the wall, mounted on the wall, or possibly, you know, with a couple of legs sticking up above the wall. Anyway, we can. The design will deal with the actual picture and so on, and we'll worry about the site as part of the moving forward.
you're referring to as the standard bank. I've
Well,
heard it
whatever
referred
is.
to as the Dominion Bank, and it's had a couple different names and
Yes.
iterations, but it's
Well, I think the original was Standard Bank, but I'm not
Okay.
sure.
all right. Thanks. I haven't heard that before. Sorry.
Bank of Commerce is still standing too. It's across the hall, or it's on Prince Edward.
So, Nancy, you were moving that we go ahead and come up with a design for that?
Thank you, Dave.
Is that all right?
That would be fine.
And could you
Get the
take care of
information.
that? I mean, we've got pictures, so
Yeah.
it's only a question of coming up with words.
No.
Okay. So, just a minute, Nancy volunteered to come up with a design. And suggestions for volunteers for working on additional properties. Well,
Excuse me, Dave. Just before we go into that, did you want another suggestion for a plaque?
sure.
Okay. I am suggesting that we do a plaque for Smithfield for all of the mills that were along the Smithfield Creek. So I guess it would, none of them remain except for one. And the whole village developed as a result of these mills, 13 in all at one point. But there's a lot of documentation on the Smithfield mills,
Okay.
and and pictures and all kinds of information that I think would be very useful, and
Okay.
so that's something to consider for the
So,
future.
would you like to come up with a design for that too?
Well, geez, while I'm at it, why the heck not?
Okay. So we can manage it as two plaques were suggested, Standard Bank and and Smithfield, and the importance of the mills on Smithfield Creek, and Nancy volunteered to come up with designs for both. Okay. Any other business? Next meeting date.
Mr. Chairman? Sorry.
Sorry?
Yeah, you had mentioned other properties that you, suggestions for other properties, not for placking, but for listing.
Oh, for listing, yes.
Yeah,
Where was that?
so for listing. So I spoke to a property owner who's interested in listing,
Oh,
and it's in Smithfield. I don't know that I want to mention the particulars, but I guess our committee needs to understand its importance architecturally. So, would you like me to proceed with that?
yes.
Okay.
Could you just, for Paul, could you, for Tom, could you explain, you're going to come up with suggestions of two properties that you'll work with the owners to proceed with listing. Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So
so
that could be included under that previous.
what is,
Um, okay, so it could go under 8.2, couldn't it? No, okay, doesn't matter.
On the updated agenda, like the amended agenda,
Yes.
we have number 7.6, suggestions for working on additional properties to be added to the municipal register.
Right. Oh, okay, right. So,
Is that what you're referencing, Nancy?
yes. That's what she, yeah. 7.6. See, Nancy's proceeding. Nancy volunteered to work with two properties in Smithfield, is that right? Am I good spelling that right?
we need a form letter for that. She's willing to sign that she agrees to the listing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like the ones that you have there for
I don't have any.
85.
I don't have them.
Okay, I can send it to you.
And, excuse me. Can I just ask, is this something for
What's that?
to look at? This is some updates.
Yeah, through the chair, that was just a handout prior to the meeting.
Okay.
So we have a listing table, and I've asked our GIS or mapping person to update our heritage sites and our digital mapping for our GIS viewer, if you're familiar with that sort of thing, our digital map, in other words. And he found a couple of discrepancies in there, and he's explained that in this little memo. And so I'm hoping a member of the committee or two would be able to take this away and go over it and come back and kind of polish off our listings, and so we know what's accurate and up to date.
One of the properties that I was just speaking about is on this. It's under Municipal Heritage Property Changes. And it's for Liscar. But I'm not sure what the changes were, and even if it was listed. I wasn't aware that it was listed until I saw this. So are these listed properties?
I think that's the question, actually. It
Yeah.
shows up on one list. What's not on here, there is a column of properties of interest, so it doesn't really have a listing status. It's not a designated status, but at some point in time, presumably a committee member said, here's a property we should be maybe following up on at some point. It's of interest.
Okay.
So that might be the status. I think who's ever might be interested in polishing off our list, making sure it's updated and accurate, they can work directly with our Rafik, our GIS, or our digital mapping person, to resolve any of the discrepancies or inconsistencies. And I can provide that contact information for whoever might be following up. Sure.
Yeah, I see Hilton Hall's are, it's actually referred to as the Brighton Township Hall, so I'm not sure why Hilton Hall is there, but it was designated as the Brighton Township Hall. So is that possible that it's on because of that?
It could be. I don't really know the details. I just got this printed off shortly before me coming to the meeting. So he said that going about the mapping, that some of the attributes in the table weren't really matching up between one I had originally, one that he had to work with originally, and the more up-to-date one that Tom gave us. So we just want to be sure we've got everything and everything accurately.
Okay. Yeah.
One on there is 79 Kilbank Road.
Yeah.
That was demolished.
Yeah.
Nobody checked that it was
Nope.
on the list.
Nope.
Bang. Okay. Are we done?
There's another property that an owner's interested in listing, I believe. At least it's on Facebook.
All right.
So that's on Main Street. So,
Another one on Nanci.
mhm,
Okay. Would you
again,
go ahead and follow up? Yeah?
yeah,
Okay. So that you're following up on 3 properties now, is that right?
I think 4,
Three,
possibly
four.
5, because there's, well, I don't know. Who's doing this?
I'm not sure what
As
we're...
far as this document goes, I would volunteer to work with them. So, but I probably have to get the information. Do we have a package of information on each property?
Oh. There is the binders, right? That of registered and designated properties.
Yes, I've got the one binder that but that was the binder you created, wasn't it? It wasn't, did it come from the planning department? Is that the planning department's?
As far as I know, it was the Heritage Advisory Committee that put that together
Hmm.
through the planning department.
Are there any documents that have inventoried each building? I think I'm asking tough questions.
Well, we've got a list. I think you have a copy of it. I think I distributed a copy at our very first meeting this year. Anyway,
I think if we just have someone take a lead and review each item on this and correspond with staff and fellow committee members, we'll come back with a final list at the next meeting. If
Okay.
that sounds like a desired process going forward.
well, I'll undertake to do that, Paul. I'll do a bit of research and see what I've got, and I'll get back to you.
When I worked with LACAC back in the Stone Age, was in Rideau Township, but we had like a file for architectural information, a file for historical information, and the historical information. We went to the records in the municipality. We had the number of owners, their deaths, their birth, their deaths, the size of the families, whatever. So it was quite an extensive file. And I'm just thinking maybe, do we have something similar to that, or nothing at all, or?
Well, I don't know. Paul, the committee's always been under the impression that all the records for property designation and listing are all with the planning department. Now, some of that information has been duplicated out to members at various times, but it's been the last, what is it now, say 3 years or so. It's just been an impossible task because there's been no continuity in the planning department. You know, I forget how many planners the municipality's gone through in that time, and we've kind of done our best to keep the key things on a kind of level and keep, but the records have, I think in some cases, been kind of dispersed now a little bit, and whether there's the information that the committee has is key, or whether these are just duplicates that we have, I don't know. Because I think probably the best thing to do is if we gather up what we've got and sit down with you or one of your people, and we'll see if we can straighten out who's got what and where the real information is.
Sure, I'll put a peck and hunt on for any historical heritage information. And I'll reach out as well to some of the other planners who have been here, so they're within a broader network of emails and that sort of thing that I can maybe find and touch base with them.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I would volunteer to get those documents and put them together for this committee.
Okay, but where are you going to get them from?
We'll hunt and peck together.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, it also covers our raison d'etre kind of thing. If somebody walks up to you and sort of says, well, why is this building designated heritage? And you just open the file and you sort of say, well, here are all the architectural, and here's all the historical information.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Yep.
Thanks. I think that's certainly what we need. I think because we've gone through a few different planners, and then we had a staff person who was quite involved. Some of that stuff got lost along the way. We're sure it's there somewhere. So if we can find it and make sure it's stored in a way that, you know, whoever the planner is, where, you know what I mean, that it's stored, that we can find it and access it. So I think it's great that we have a couple of people kind of just working on that, getting that figured out. That would be great. Because we have these questions every time we have a meeting, or every time we're wondering where it could be, and no one knows. And so there's information out there. And we may need to grow, expand on it a little bit, but for sure it's there somewhere.
If you need help with that, I would be
Okay. Well,
willing to help.
it sounds to me like Ron's volunteering to kind of draw things together. So what I plan on doing, Ron, is take everything I have and I'll give it to you, and then you can liaise with the planning department, which if I'm understanding you correctly, you'd like to do, and then we can bring the two things together. Does that sound good? Okay. Let's do that. Are we going to minute that, or just leave that as a...
Put that on the agenda for the next meeting. Follow up on that.
Well, we could certainly note that Ron has agreed to liaise with the planning department to make sure we have consistent records.
And could we combine the GIS with what I just suggested here,
Yeah, I think what we can do is normally with every polygon or point on a map, you can attach a table of information. So that's something that you don't see when you're working the map necessarily, is the database behind it.
Right.
So that database can have, as robust as a database sounds in terms of information. Databases are labor intensive to put together and maintain, but they can be kept simple, like a spreadsheet. So we can have a few spreadsheets in there with appropriate documentation.
Well, I have worked with GIS before, but just to show you how long ago it was, Fred Flintstone was one of the students. So.
Okay. I think we're done. So can I have a motion to adjourn? Oh. When is the next?
I've got November 2nd as the next meeting.
Okay. Motion to adjourn. Ron, seconder. All in favour? We're all done.